to a fairly widespread frost, 1 or 2 Celsius typical in some main urban centres, but in rural parts, I think, down a few degrees below freezing. A bright start, nevertheless, for England and Wales first thing Friday, a cloudier start for Scotland and Northern Ireland, and damp for western hills of Scotland, with the most heavy persistent rainfall affecting northwest Highlands. It's mild, though, the winds coming from the southwest, so temperatures widely in the double figures on Friday, and as we head into the weekend, a lot of cloud around.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
And right across the United Kingdom.
You can find us on Sky Channel 512.
Virgin Media Channel 604.
Freesat Channel 216.
Freeview Channel 236.
And YouView Channel 236.
You can also take us with you on DAB Plus Radio.
With the GB News app and at the website gbnews.uk.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akua, Saturday and Sunday afternoons on GB News. Expect fiery debate and passionate discussion as me and my panel tackle some of the biggest topics hitting the headlines. It's a place for everyone's opinion. No one gets cancelled, but no one gets an easy ride.
Oh, she's on it today!
Be ready for conversations that are fierce, frank, and of course, fun. Every Saturday and Sunday afternoon from 4 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel.
Join my show Farrow, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch.
You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness me. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farrow.
Hello there, it's Eamonn Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB Plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and TuneIn apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
Hi, Andrew Pierce here. Join me every Friday lunchtime for a proper no-nonsense debrief of the week's events. With special guests in the studio and the GB News team on the ground, I'll be getting you up to date with news, some intelligent discussion, and my own sharp take. The weekend starts here with me every Friday lunchtime on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Lawrence Fox, on GB News. Frank, fun, fearless, and sometimes serious. Much as I love a Friday night punch-up, what I really want is a battle of ideas. I want to look at things differently. I want to hear different voices and engage with your unique experiences. Every Friday at 7 p.m. on GB News.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
Why not take us home with you by visiting the GB News shop at gbnews.store. You'll find all the official merchandise, a really good present actually for yourself, your friends or your family.
We ship across the UK mainland at no extra cost. GB News, the People's Channel.
No spin, no bias, no censorship. I'm Dan Wootton. Tonight, Superwoman Suella Braverman has announced a critical overhaul of the Prevent Anti-Extremism programme, and Islamist terrorists won't be getting an easy ride any longer.
There is nothing anti-Muslim about tackling Islamism, and we must continue to work closely with Muslim communities if we are to do so effectively.
I'll explain in my digest next why, if we continue to turn a blind eye to homegrown Islamist terrorism, the biggest terrorist threat, by the way, to the UK, more innocent lives will be lost. Then I'll get the thoughts of my superstar panel. Joining me tonight, Suzanne Evans, Adam Brooks and Ashley James. While Braverman boldly tackles Islamist extremists, the BBC is busy Disneyfying ISIS bride Shamima Begum's tale of terror in this despicable documentary.
I didn't feel British because I feel like I wasn't able to be British even though I wanted to be, if that makes sense. I didn't feel like I was accepted by society either because of racism and other things.
So this is what your licence fee gets you these days, folks. PR for terrorist sympathisers. But the man who knows Begum best, Andrew Jury, is actually going to expose the smirking former Death Cult member as a fraud, live with me in the studio at 10:20. Also coming up, as a judge rules Harry and Meghan must be grilled in a deposition as part of Samantha Markle's defamation suit against her sister. Do you believe that the Sussexes told the truth in that infamous Oprah interview? Because it's potentially ricocheting to court now. Petronella Wyatt, David Emmanuel and Ernest Owens duke it out on the clash at 9:20. With even Police Scotland defying scheming Sturgeon by refusing to call a trans butcher who's been charged in connection with the disappearance of a young girl a woman, has Queen Nick now lost all authority. Self-proclaimed Chief Gammon June Slater gives her unfiltered take at 9:50. Was Fishy Rishi's pledge to leave the ECHR just a ruse to keep Brexiteers on side? Our very own Nigel Farage is going to explore those bombshell claims at 9:35. Plus, as a wet Whitehall whistleblower speaks out against Dominic Raab, his truly shocking testimony to the Craven MSM really should come with a content warning.
He would cut people short, telling them to stop talking.
Yeah, that warning that civil servant snowflakes like him are ruining the country. Don't miss my blistering take on this pathetic MSM witch hunt in the media buzz. After 10, we'll have a first look at tomorrow's newspaper front pages. The moment they're off the presses as well. And is it fair to tell people who can't afford kids to just forget having them? We're going to get stuck into that when I crown my greatest Britain in Uni and Jackass at 10:50. This is Dan Wootton Tonight. Let's go. Yeah, it's been lost today, actually. It's really been lost, this Shawcross report into the Prevent Terrorism Scheme. For me, it is by far the most important domestic story of the day, so my digest on it will be up after the headlines with Polly Middlehurst.
Dan, thank you, and good evening to you. The top story on GB News tonight. The Prime Minister has confirmed the UK is accelerating the delivery of military equipment to Ukraine so it arrives within weeks instead of months. In his address to Parliament earlier, President Zelensky requested British fighter jets to bolster Ukraine's defences against Russia. Soon, he's expected to meet the French President, Emmanuel Macron, and the German Chancellor in Paris. Speaking at a military base in Dorset earlier on today, Rishi Sunak said nothing is off the table for Ukraine in terms of military assistance.
All over the United Kingdom, Ukrainian men and women are learning how to command and control NATO standard weapons, whether that is in drone warfare, tank operations, or basic training. Their dedication, courage, and determination is a credit to you and your country. And Volodymyr, your visit here today underlines our two countries' close and enduring friendship. We will always be by your side, your staunch and unwavering friends.
Well, also in the news tonight, governments and organisations around the world are offering support to Turkey and Syria after two devastating earthquakes killed more than 11,000 people. The Foreign Office says 3 British people are still missing following the disaster. And Downing Street said this afternoon the UK will continue to assess the situation and stands ready to provide further long-term assistance if needed. International investigators say there are strong indications that the Russian President Vladimir Putin decided to supply the missile which downed a Malaysia Airlines flight in 2014. 298 people were killed in the disaster, which happened over Ukrainian territory. Investigators aren't suggesting that Putin ordered the aircraft be shot down, but they say the evidence isn't strong enough to lead to any criminal convictions, so they've ended their probe. Russia has denied any wrongdoing. Here, the partner of missing mother of 2, Nicola Bulley, has visited the riverbank in Lancashire where she was last seen. Paul Ansell went to the field where her phone and dog were found near the River Wyre as police continued their 12th day of search. Nicola went missing while taking her dog for a walk and after dropping off her children at school. Meanwhile, the private underwater rescue team that's been helping police has now pulled out of the search, with CEO Peter Faulding saying he's baffled to fail to find her. Now, the former Labour MP Jared Amara has been found guilty of 6 counts of fraud, all committed while he was in office. The 41-year-old, who was a Member of Parliament between 2017 and 2019, was on trial for submitting fake invoices to Parliament worth around £24,000 to fund his cocaine habit. A jury cleared him of 2 other charges, and sentencing will take place at Leeds Crown Court tomorrow. And lastly, an inquest into the death of Archie Battersby has concluded that he died accidentally in a prank or an experiment that went wrong. The coroner ruled the 12-year-old boy who was found unconscious in his bedroom had not intended to harm himself. The boy had his life support treatment withdrawn last August after his parents failed to overturn a High Court ruling that doctors could lawfully do so. You're up to date on TV, online and DAB Plus radio. You're with GB News. Let's get back to Dan Wootton tonight.
Today, most mainstream media attention might be focused on the Ukrainian president's wartime visit to the UK. But for me, the most important story by far is the release of the damning Shawcross report into the failing Prevent counter-terrorism programme, which shows warped wokery and political correctness is now directly putting British lives at risk from homegrown Islamist terrorists. That's because officials have become distracted by so-called right-wing extremism, which very often is simply someone sharing a relatively mild view unpalatable with the liberal elite. So Shawcross said the definition for prevent is so broad it has included mildly controversial or provocative forms of mainstream right-wing leaning commentary that have no meaningful connection to terrorism or radicalisation. So while 80% of counter-terrorism police live investigations deal with Islamist terrorism, just 16%, 1/6 that is, 1/6, not 60%, of Prevent referrals this last year were related to Islamism. To me, that proves the system is fundamentally broken. The Home Secretary, Suella Braverman, pledged today to accept all 34 of the Shawcross recommendations and implement them within a year. She explained why powerfully in Parliament in an address that will no doubt make the lefties wince.
Prevent needs major reform. Prevent needs to better understand the threats we face and the ideology underpinning them. MI5 are clear that Islamist terrorism remains our predominant threat, accounting for 75% of their caseload. Yet only 16% of Prevent referrals in 2021-22 were Islamist. Prevent has shown cultural timidity and an institutional hesitancy to tackle Islamism for fear of the charge of Islamophobia. The truth is, there is nothing anti-Muslim about tackling Islamism. And we must continue to work closely with Muslim communities if we are to do so effectively.
Shawcross also rightly pointed out that too often terrorist attacks have been committed by people previously referred to Prevent. In 2014, a teenager called Ali Harbi Ali was referred and discharged after a sole meeting, but he went on to plot a terrorist attack that resulted in the murder of MP David Amess. Then there's the terrorist behind the Parsons Green tube bombing, the terrorist responsible for the 2020 Streatham stabbings, the terrorist who murdered 3 gay men in a Reading park in 2020. All of them were referred to Prevent. The most chilling line from Shawcross today was this: I am concerned that a culture of timidity exists among practitioners in the round when it comes to tackling Islamism. If left as it is, potentially fatal blind spots will emerge and grow. As I've been saying on this show for the past 2 years, if we continue to turn a blind eye to homegrown Islamist terrorism, the biggest terrorist threat to the UK, then sadly, I have no doubt many more innocent lives are going to be lost in the years to come. To respond now, my superstar panel, the political commentator Suzanne Evans, the businessman and activist Adam Brooks, and the broadcaster Ashley James. Suzanne Evans, this has been a long time coming because there is not a moment to waste, is there?
So this programme has been a disaster from the start, in my view, Dan. It started up with no clear idea of what it was going to do. It focused very much on violent extremism rather than looking at extremist ideology within the Muslim faith. And, of course, that is what fuels the violence. So you really need to get back to a root source and start tackle that. But as has just been seen in your reports, nobody was prepared to talk about the crucial issues in Islam itself that are incompatible with Western values. So the homophobia, the treatment of women, the push for Sharia law in this country, the rampant anti-Semitism within many Muslim communities. Nobody would talk about this. And this is why we've ended up where we are today. The other thing, of course, Prevent did was infuriate other faith communities, because they saw the Muslims getting all the attention and all the money. And let's not forget, as this report also shows, a lot of the money was going to, it was being channeled by self-appointed community leaders who themselves had extremist views. So other faith groups who are well integrated and weren't getting any money, they weren't getting any political attention. That annoyed them. That did nothing for community cohesion or interfaith relationships. The whole thing has been a disaster. Frankly, I think it should be scrapped because it's clearly not working. It's doing far more harm than good. But also, I think it's part of the reason we have this problem with Islamist terrorism is because we've allowed Saudi Arabian-style extremism to flourish in many mosques in this country. We know from research that's been done by the education authorities that it's flourishing in many Muslim schools. And, of course, there are charities that really should be investigated.
Indeed. And they will immediately, by the way, when someone like you says what you've just said, when someone like me says what I said in my digest, immediately they're going to use the Islamophobia
Well,
word.
can I just say, you know, I've got a degree in religious studies. I actually could sit here and make a very different case for Islam. I have a huge amount of respect for the religion, but it has faults, like every religion has, you know, and to deny that that's a part of terrorism is you might as well deny that Christianity was not an issue in the Troubles in Northern Ireland.
I mean, Adam, look, so Suzanne says it has to go altogether and that it's always been a flawed scheme. But the point is, in recent years, because of this slow creep of what Elon Musk describes as the woke mind virus, which is creeping in to anything which is run by the political establishment, we actually have a situation now that all of the focus is going on so-called right-wing extremism. And don't get me wrong, you know, clearly that has to be tackled. Neo-Nazism, for example, has to be tackled. But the police, who actually know where the terror threat is, say 80% of it is coming from Islamist extremism.
Look, in 2020, one of these woke anti-terror officers told us that the far right were the fastest growing threat in this country.
It's a lie.
It's absolute nonsense, and it's a play with numbers. Yes, they were probably growing quicker, but there was 43,000 terror suspects on the watch list in 2020, of which just 10% were not Islamic fundamentalists.
Of Prevent, and that's the point. The focus of this Prevent scheme has become on right-wing extremism, even though the issue is Islamist terrorism.
We've seen, you've named some of the individuals that have gone on to kill and maim, you know, adults and children. They've missed that. They've missed so many. It's not working. No. It's not working at all. And I think this country is so softly on everything, whether it be terrorism, policing, school discipline.
The one thing we shouldn't be softly on, Ashley James, is Islamist extremism, because it threatens us all.
Yeah, I mean, I think that is the word. It's extremism. So...
Well, no, I didn't say extremism. I said it's Islamist extremism.
Everyone would
but
agree.
I'm specifically talking about Islamist extremism.
Yeah, so am I.
No, but you know, you said you just want to speak about extremism, and that's the debate.
What I'm saying is that we have to be very careful not to say the Islam religion or the Muslims, because every Muslim I know does not want terrorism or extremism in their religion.
But there's 40,000 on a watch list.
And by the way, I think that it's absolutely shocking that 7 out of 13 terrorist attacks that have happened in the last 6 years, there are people on the watchdog. So there is no doubt that there are massive system failures. I cannot imagine how upset you would be to lose a family member or a friend to someone that should have been prevented from committing that atrocity in the first place. The issue
Isn't
that
the
I
problem
have...
this PC and woke culture?
I don't think you can blame PC and woke, because also there are other extremisms. And the issue that I have in the article is it says the provision of mental health care for less potent threats, such as misogynistic incels. I'm actually bored of incels and the violence against women and girls being dismissed as like lone threats or, you know, the bad apples. We see it all the time. And to say that it's a less potent threat, one woman is murdered by a man every 3 days. Even when you look at the news this week, a teacher and a daughter shot by husbands.
Here.
Yes, but we're talking about extremism. We're talking about extremism, and incel culture is extremism. And we saw what happened with the 22-year-old Jake Davidson was radicalised online.
Of course, you can come up with individual cases. No one is defending
it's
the
more
incels or saying they shouldn't be dealt with. But what we are debating here is the fact that the police, because this is really important, OK? The police say 80% of the terrorist threat to this country comes from Islamist extremism. Then you've got this organisation, Prevent, which costs hundreds and millions of pounds of taxpayers' money, and they are only referring 16% of extremists who are
The report
Islamists.
talks about extremism, whereas you're talking about terrorism. And I think we do need to look at the facts.
Well,
we need to start...
These people become radicalised, don't they, Susanna?
Neo-Nazis, of course, they're extremists.
I mean,
Incels, of course, they're extremists. So, yes, I'm not denying, of course, we need to focus on terrorism, 100%. But we also need to start looking at what we consider extremism, because incel culture is extremism.
I just think it's really interesting the way this debate is going. You know, the fact that there is a problem in one community, and I think the problem is that it's been too often dismissed by people saying, but you've got this problem, you've got white supremacists, you've got race, you've got whatever. It's whataboutery. That does not mean...
This isn't whataboutery. It was talked about specifically in this. I'm not just giving this example.
It does feel, and I would say this is representative of the left, it does feel, I'm just being completely honest with you, that here I am wanting to have a discussion about Islamist extremism, because that is what has been... really honed in on in this Shawcross report, which is a report, by the way, 3 years in the making. This is the most important report, probably, that we're going to get out of government for many years. And you immediately don't want to talk about Islamist extremism. You want to talk about...
I do, and I did talk about it. But I'm looking at the report, and I read the report, and it does say less potent threats such as misogynistic incels. That also needs to be looked. So I'm not just whataboutering for the sake of whataboutering.
Let's just have it right.
Final word, Adam.
Things like Rotherham and the grooming gang scandals were allowed to go on because people were scared to speak out. Police were scared to investigate in case they were called racist.
What the Manchester Arena bomb?
Right.
Politicians would do nothing because they
one
wanted
other
that
thing,
vote.
we have got a serious problem with people coming in on dinghies. We don't know who they are. That watch list will only have a fraction.
So really, Suella Braverman should
that
start processing asylum applications so she can get bad people out of the country and open safe routes.
That ain't the answer. That ain't the answer, Ashley. Ashley James, Adam Brooks, Suzanne Evans, my superstar panel here all night. But coming up, was Fishy Rishi's pledge, speaking of the dinghy crisis, to leave the ECHR just a ploy to keep Brexiteers on side? Our very own Nigel Farage is going to explore those bombshell claims just after 9:30. But up next, in the clash, as a judge rules that the Sussexes must be grilled in a deposition as part of Samantha Markle's defamation suit against her sister, do you believe that Harry and Meghan told the truth? In that infamous interview, Petronella Wyatt, David Emmanuel and Ernest Owens are going to battle it out straight after the break. But I want to know what you think on this. Our poll running at GB News on Twitter right now.
He's the king of breakfast TV, and he's back.
Eamonn Holmes, back on the TV
Surprised
with me this morning.
Even remember my name.
I know, it's been 4 months. You have holy water by your bed?
Oh, yes.
Oh,
already to bless.
Oh, Eamonn. Oh.
Why do you not believe anything I say?
Eamonn Holmes back on GB News Breakfast at 6 a.m.
Here on GB News Live, we'll be keeping you in the picture, finding out what's happening across the country and finding out why it matters to you. We'll have the facts fast with our team of reporters and specialist correspondents. Wherever it's happening, we'll be there from 12 noon on TV, radio and online. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michael Portillo. Join me on GB News on a Sunday morning for topical discussion, debate, arts and culture, and sometimes even some ethical dilemmas.
I don't always agree with you, Michael.
Michael Portillo, Sundays on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Dewbs and Co.
You're an inspiration to us all.
Clip that bit up.
Well, you are.
That's my ringtone. My political ambitions those days are gone, I can tell you.
She's only teasing. Go on.
He's probably going to want to lay down now. I'll give him 2 minutes to have one. Let's respectfully disagree. That's what we like on Dewbs and Co. Come and join us. GB News, the People's Channel.
Michelle Dewberry, weekday evenings at 6 o'clock.
This year on GB News, we've got brand new members in the family.
Join us. Across the entire United Kingdom, we cover the issues that matter to you. GB News will always stay honest, balanced and fair. We want to hear whatever is on your mind.
And we don't talk down to you.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent you.
Britain's watching.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m.
What's the scoop?
I'll be joined by two of the country's top comedians.
That's right.
As we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight.
We're going to get into trouble.
If it's a big story, we'll be covering it.
Spill some tea on him.
There we go.
But we'll also have some fun.
I wouldn't stick up a bank. My father didn't love me. So anyway.
Headliners every night from 11 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my two comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christys, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics, and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, Andrew Pierce here. Join me every Friday lunchtime for a proper no-nonsense debrief of the week's events. With special guests in the studio and the GB News team on the ground, I'll be getting you up to date with news, some intelligent discussion and my own sharp take. The weekend starts here with me every Friday lunchtime on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Time now for The Clash. And in a bombshell ruling by a US judge and a victory for the truth, the Duchess of Sussex has lost her legal battle to avoid giving evidence in a defamation claim brought by her sister Samantha Markle. Samantha wants $75,000 in damages over what she says were false and malicious lies told by the Sussexes in their now infamous Oprah Winfrey interview in March 2021, as well as the 2020 biography Finding Freedom, you know, by that very old little bloke who seems to be obsessed with Meghan Markle, Omid Scobie. So if the case makes it to court, then both Meghan and Harry will be forced to be grilled in depositions under oath. Given this case, and actually all that's emerged since, our question tonight, do you believe, because it's becoming very legally important this, that the Sussexes told the truth in their Oprah Winfrey interviews? Let me know your thoughts by emailing dan@gbnews.uk. Tweet me at GBNews. While you're there, go and vote in our poll. But joining me now is the well-connected writer and journalist Petronella Wyatt, the fashion designer, who is, of course, close friends with Princess Diana, David Emmanuel, and the author of The Case for Cancel Culture, Ernest Owens. Petronella, this is becoming really important now because I think we can prove, and I think Samantha Markle will be able to prove, that they told lie after lie in that interview, did they not?
Yes, I think the most important thing is that for the first time, they're likely to be subject to proper, rigorous questioning, which hasn't taken place because Oprah was a charm and subsequent interviews have been done with their hand-picked friends in the media. And it's basically been a sort of soft pat, or nobody's challenged them. They've had a terribly easy ride. And I do think, because a lot of the people they're making accusations against obviously can't answer back because some of them are members of the royal family, that it's time that they were subjected to a proper grilling because they've been going on for years.
Yeah, and especially David Emmanuel, because Samantha Markle, by the way, a woman who I trust entirely, who I've got to know a lot over the past few years, and everyone said, oh, she's just bitter and twisted. Well, no, actually, David, she was telling the truth
I think absolutely. But anyway, going back, $75,000, is that right? Peanuts. I'd go for more.
Yeah.
But
I don't think this is about the money,
no,
Samantha.
Obviously. But on the grand scale of things, it's been pretty horrific for their family, the Markle family. They've dished her and the father, and you know what it's
Thrown
like,
under
though?
the bus.
It's actually like an episode of Suits, actually. Isn't it?
Yes.
It is. And I hope they have their day in court, and I hope, once I agree with Petronella, pin them down and ask them direct questions and get direct answers. Very important.
Yes, because they've been extraordinarily inconsistent.
Well, they have. Well, actually, I want to ask Ernest about that, because Ernest Owens, I find this really shocking. You still trust and believe everything Harry and Meghan said in that Oprah Winfrey interview? Because I can prove a whole load of the things that they said were completely untrue, Ernest.
I think that when it comes to the family issues and matters that they're dealing with, I think that that's going to have a lot of the real conversations. I think that that's their interpretation of what they felt like happened in their life. And I think that it would be thought of us to try to pretend that some of this stuff did not happen. Let's be real here. I do think there's something going on. I don't really necessarily trust the family. I mean, look at how her father was acting during her, her thing. I trust them in this regard. I don't think that they're lying about the situation with this. I don't think it's that significant. I think she wants attention.
OK, well, why did they say there was a royal racist, Ernest, and then all of a sudden, oh, no, we never said that.
Indeed,
it's just the British media.
And why did they say that there was a secret wedding performed by the Archbishop of Canterbury when it wasn't true?
I'm talking about the sister. What, do you want me to answer the question?
Well, no, I'll tell you a couple of things on that, because Samantha Markle is actually demanding that her sister, Meghan, answers a whole load of questions, and Prince Harry. Now, some of those questions are about the lies that Harry and Meghan have told about the Markle family, but some of the questions are about the lies that Harry and Meghan have told about the royal family, because they're going to ask, her lawyers want to ask Harry and Meghan directly, is the royal family racist, and where's the evidence for it? They don't have any evidence.
Well, you don't know that. If they're put to do it to the law, they might provide information that they may have not wanted to. I think at some sense they were trying to protect some of those members. That's why they did not disclose names. But you better be careful, because they might pull out all the receipts, and we're going to find out things that you probably don't want to know that's going to prove the point.
This is nonsense. This is nonsense, because Harry has completely rode back on this racism allegation in subsequent interviews, and has actually denied he ever said it on Oprah. And I do not believe that they're going to pull out names of members of the royal family who made racist remarks vis-a-vis what colour Archie's skin might be, because, in my view, it never happened.
David?
But it's almost like blackmail, isn't it? They blackmailed his father. He's blackmailed, I mean, if you're talking about Harry Windsor, blackmailed his father, virtually blackmailing William.
Yep.
And I think it reminds me of Prince Andrew. I think King Charles is hoping that this is all going to be wrapped up and reconciliation. That's, I'm sorry, it's going further and further away, right? And
indeed.
I think, I don't know, it's not going to happen before.
Yeah. I mean, Ernest, there are about 14 provable lies, by the way, just from the Oprah interview alone. But just tackle the one that Petronella asked you about directly. They claimed that the Archbishop of Canterbury, Justin Welby, had married them 3 days before the ceremony that all the world see. Total lie. Ernest, complete and utter provable lie.
I think the whole
We're not
thing
having
is
that
lies.
conversation about. Well, that's fine, but I think as far as this lawsuit goes.
Well, but you said you could trust them and that they didn't lie during the interview. They did.
I'm saying, have any of you not lied before? Is that relevant to the particular case at hand? I don't think that they're going to have
wait a minute.
That's my opinion.
Not on national television, not when it's so important.
You don't have to agree.
Have we lied on national television? I've never. And when this was a major interview designed to make Harry's family and her family look as bad as possible.
The family's not getting that $75,000.
But don't they deserve to win their reputation back?
Exactly.
Your reputation is priceless.
The case is not going to go through in that way. They're not going to give that woman the dime.
Interesting. So just, you love cancel culture, Ernest. Now you're trying to cancel the Markles. Are you? They don't have a right. They don't have a right. to stand up for themselves in court?
I'm not trying to cancel. I'm just saying that they're going to do what they're going to do, but they're just wrong. They have the right to fight it in court. I'm just saying they're not going to win.
Okay. Well, I think they might. But we will see.
I hope so.
The author of The Case for Cancel Culture, Ernest Owens, the journalist Petronella Wyatt, and the fashion designer behind Princess Diana's remarkable wedding dress, David Emmanuel. But who do you agree with on this? Do you believe that the Sussexes told the truth in that infamous Oprah interview? Tux says, I never believed a word of it. This is where Harry and Meghan's lies well and truly start to bite them on the backside. From Steve, they should be able to give their point of view on their experiences, correct or not. Also, I love this now. It's like your truth. It's your truth, isn't it? There isn't the truth anymore. There's just your truth. Rubbish. And Amy says, well, we shall see when the case goes to court. And I very much hope it gets there. Your verdict is now in. Just 8% of you agree that the Sussexes told the truth and they're famous. For interview, 92%. Wow. I mean, look, it should be 99.9%, right? Because I can prove it. I can prove it time and again. They lied. Coming up, with Scottish police defying their First Minister by referring to a transgender butcher charged in connection with the disappearance of an 11-year-old girl as a man, are Scots right to ignore scheming Sturgeon? Well, our chief gammon, June Slater, joins me at 9:50. But before that, has the PM been rumbled for fibbing over his intention to leave the ECHR? Brexit broker and broadcasting legend Nigel Farage, he's here live straight after the break.
This year on GB News, we've got brand new members in the family.
Join us. Across the entire United Kingdom, we cover the issues that matter to you. GB News will always stay honest, balanced and fair. We want to hear whatever is on your mind.
And we don't talk down to you.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent you. Britain's watching.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
We are GB News, right across the nation. You can get us on television, on radio, on digital. We're absolutely everywhere.
Amazing! You see, amazing!
You remind me of me in the European Parliament. But here's the most important bit. We are not part of the mainstream establishment. We think and speak just like you do. We are the People's Channel.
Magnificent. That's really, really thoughtful.
Come and join us on GB News, the People's News Channel.
Join me, Patrick Christys, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
Why not take us home with you by visiting the GB News shop at gbnews.store. You'll find all the official merchandise, a really good present actually for yourself, your friends or your family.
We ship across the UK mainland at no extra cost. GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Lawrence Fox, on GB News. Frank, fun, fearless and sometimes serious. Much as I love a Friday night punch-up, what I really want is a battle of ideas. I want to look at things differently. I want to hear different voices and engage with your unique experiences. Every Friday at 7 p.m. on GB News.
I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m.
What's the scoop?
I'll be joined by two of the country's top comedians.
That's right.
As we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight.
We're going to get into trouble.
If it's a big story, we'll be covering it.
Spill some tea on him.
There we go.
But we'll also have some fun.
I wouldn't stick up a bank.
My father didn't love me.
So anyway.
Headliners every night from 11 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, it's Eamonn Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and tune-in apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
I'm Mark White. As GB News Home and Security Editor, I cover those key issues that are so important to you. Our authorities, our communities doing all they can to combat violent crime. With the public services under unbearable strain, why are we still failing to control our borders? Defence, the first priority of any government, has been continually hollowed out. Can we trust our politicians to protect the armed forces? Join me, Mark White, on GB News.
Time now for What the Farage. And Brexiteers were left beaming this weekend as headlines suggested PM Rishi Sunak would consider pulling out of the European Convention on Human Rights if Strasbourg courts prevented him delivering his fifth pledge to stop the boats, which inevitably they will. But just 24 hours later, the Times newspaper exposed the whole ploy as nothing more than a political ruse to throw the Tory right wing some red meat ahead of finalising a customs deal on Northern Ireland. So, with Fishy Rishi's commitment to the ECHR looking as solid as ever now, is Nigel Farage right to say that the British public now deserve a referendum on leaving? Nigel, I mean, that was an extraordinary 48 hours, wasn't it? The Sunday Times says, Rishi wants us to go. The Times on the money says, oh, no. This was just to appease the European Research Group.
Well, I mean, look at the immediate reaction. I mean, within hours of that being published, that we might consider putting in our next manifesto, leaving ECHR. I mean, the massed ranks of the Conservative Party said, oh, my goodness, but you can't do this. This is dreadful. ECHR is the new Brexit. The attitude towards ECHR within the Tory Party is the same as it was 10 years ago. If anyone dared utter, we should leave the European Union. It was a totally inconsistent, insincere comment made by Sunak. And please, folks, don't believe a word of it. It simply isn't going to happen. And even if it did, it'd be yet another manifesto lie. And they've been doing it since 2010. 2010 manifesto will reduce net migration tens of thousands a year. They said it in 2015. They said it in 2017. Those general elections. And in 2019, vote for us and take back control of your borders. As I speak, dinghies are massing on the beaches of Dunkirk. I mean, at every election, they lie to you and say, but Labour almost. Sorry, none of it's good enough.
I mean, the thing is, Nigel, right, it's insane for anyone in the Conservative Party to think that a manifesto pledge is appropriate or enough in this case. We can't wait for this to be a fight at the next election. We've got to leave the ECHR now.
Well, the point is, we cannot deport people because of ECHR. Abu Qatada, a blooming terrorist, took us 10 years to get rid of him. And anybody can claim, and, Articles 2, 3, Article 8, the right to a family life. I've got a cat, you can't deport me. My third cousin's just had a baby. I mean, it literally is impossible. That plane did not go to Rwanda that night because of a judge there in the European Court of Human Rights in Strasbourg. If you want to take back control of your borders, if you want to be a sovereign nation, if you want a proper Brexit, you have to leave ECHR.
Now, look, Nigel, from the sublime to the ridiculous, but I think I was actually equally angry about this one. So have you heard about it, Nigel? Tom Jones, right, coming under really increasing pressure from the usual woke mob to knock Delilah off his set list altogether because apparently the lyrics celebrate domestic violence. Now, the Welsh Rugby Union has already actually banned the song, but thank God Tom, at this point, refusing to budge and saying that he will play the song at Cardiff Castle. But can you believe, Nigel, that cancel culture is now permeating actually songs that transcend what their lyrical content is?
Yeah. Well, it'll be Shakespeare next, won't it?
Well, it's already happening, isn't it?
Well, I mean, Romeo and Juliet. Romeo and Juliet. I mean, clearly, it'll begin by being amended and then be completely banned. And all of this in a country where the Church of England, our established church, is considering removing Our Father and it'll become they or them.
It's lunacy.
But it is. But you know something? I just get a feeling now it maybe has to get worse before it gets better. And when you look at what's happening in Scotland, with that very irresponsible, dangerous piece of legislation Sturgeon put through, there is now a backlash against it, and it's real, and it's happening, and it's affecting not just her personal polls, but even the polls for Scottish separation. So there does come a moment at which that pendulum swings back, at which people get on board and say, this is madness. And of course they'll say, we knew it all along. Although they wouldn't have had the courage to speak out and say it. And this is where, actually, this is important. This is where GB News, I think, is playing a very important role in our national public life, because we're daring to call out these things. Now, that doesn't mean we'll get everything right, but it does mean on some of these fundamentally important issues where people know in their hearts what is going on is wrong, but dare not speak the truth. Well, we do dare to speak the truth. And I think on all of these things, I'm becoming more optimistic of a swing back of that pendulum. I really am.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. I think it's a good moment, given you mentioned GB News, Nigel, because we've been dealing with quite a lot of incoming over the past few days. And I think it is really important to point out the reason that we are forced, not by choice, by the way, to work in a regulatory environment is because we want people to watch us. We want to have a wide audience. We want to be available on terrestrial TV. And by signing up to that, we have to sign up to government regulation via this body called Ofcom. And we've never denied that, have we? There is a cost, of course, to signing up to that, but that's what you have to do in this country. Personally, I wish Ofcom didn't exist at all. It doesn't exist in the US, and they have a much better media system as a result. But in the UK, if you want to be on television, that's what you have to do.
Yeah, I mean, look, in a minute, I'm doing Fox News America, where they don't have to provide any balance to the arguments at all. But I'll tell you this, actually, I'm not vexed by Ofcom at all. I've worked with far worse regulators, namely the European Parliament and the Financial Conduct Authority, than I have with Ofcom. And frankly, Dan, it's not difficult, because actually we want to treat our viewers and listeners with intelligence too. And I very often on my show, will show both sides of an argument, both sides of a debate, and say to people at home, we at GB News think you are big enough and ugly enough to make up, if that itself is not a cancellation comment, you're big enough and ugly enough to make up your own minds on these things. So, yeah, there has been a lot of furore about Ofcom and GB News the last couple of days. Truth is, we actually want our viewers and our listeners to hear both sides of an argument, whilst we ourselves are free to give our own opinions. I haven't got a problem with any of that.
No, indeed. And, of course, at the top of your show tonight, you had a debate that no one in the British media is having, which is that actually, can we keep on going with this war in Ukraine in perpetuity? Is that the right thing? And you won't see that debated, actually, on the BBC, or on Sky News, on ITV News. You will literally not see that debate. And, of course, on this show, as you know, I've been very passionate about highlighting the horrific treatment of the vaccine injured in this country. And I'm very passionate about that, and I will continue to do so. And yes, we have to do so within the regulatory framework, which means we give both sides of the argument, and that's how it works.
Yeah, and it works incredibly well. And I must say also, Boris Johnson is suggesting that we send every single fighter jet we own to Ukraine. And on no other news channel is the lunacy of this position even being commented on. So, we dare to break the boundaries of thought and debate and free speech. We do it in a balanced and grown-up way. And you know what? We've been around now for just over 18 months. And I do think that a GB News brand is now being established in this country. I think it's good for plurality of media. I think it's good for public debate, and I think our influence is growing. And look, all right, maybe I'm just doing a promotion for the channel, but I generally mean, I'm somebody that has fought media for a couple of decades for daring to break the orthodoxy on borders, on EU membership. Now, I know what it's like to fight the media who are all of one mind on everything. And we are beginning to break that up, and we should be very proud of ourselves.
No, I totally agree. Without GB News, I don't think the small boats crisis, in large part because of you, Nigel, would be at the top of the news agenda. Certainly, the BBC would not be covering the trans extremism in Scotland. They knew they couldn't avoid it because of the focus that GB News has had on this issue. And likewise, the vaccine injured. They do not get a voice at all on any other channel in the British media, and that will not change. Nigel, thank you so much. Great to chat. Coming up, though, in tonight's Media Buzz, with their own chairman, Richard Sharp, railing against the BBC licence fee. Is it finally time to defund the British bashing corporation? My superstar panel have their say on that. Plus, we'll have the first of tomorrow's newspaper front pages straight after 10. Also, as her dangerous and divisive gender recognition reform bill, which Nigel was just referring to, threatens to tear her legacy to pieces, is Scottish First Minister Nicola Sturgeon now finished? With even her own police force defying her today, no-nonsense commentator June Slater is going to weigh in. She's live with me straight after the break.
Here on GB News Live, we'll be keeping you in the picture, finding out what's happening across the country and finding out why it matters to you. We'll have the facts fast with our team of reporters and specialist correspondents. Wherever it's happening, we'll be there from 12 noon on TV, radio and online. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my two comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christys, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. for Gloria Meets. In exclusive interviews, I'll be finding out who our politicians really are and what they really think.
It's something that you would never want anyone to suffer.
I didn't know what channels there were. I didn't think I'd be believed.
I must have weighed about 7 stone and I'm 5'8".
My instincts was to sort of cover this up. I mean, clearly that was a mistake.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We are GB News, right across the nation. You can get us on television, on radio, on digital. We're absolutely everywhere.
Amazing. You see, amazing.
You remind me of me in the European Parliament. But here's the most important bit. We are not part of the mainstream establishment. We think and speak just like you do. We are the People's Channel.
Magnificent. That's really, really thoughtful.
Come and join us on GB News, the People's News Channel.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates. Do you not believe in prison?
I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed. So I guess they've always been quite woke. That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
This year on GB News, we've got brand new members in the family.
Join us. Across the entire United Kingdom, we cover the issues that matter to you. GB News will always stay honest, balanced and fair. We want to hear whatever is on your mind.
And we don't talk down to you.
The establishment had their chance.
Now we're here to represent you. Britain's watching.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
June Slater is tonight's outsider. And a transgender butcher in Scotland who traded under the name of Andrew Miller, but now apparently goes by Amy, Andrew to me, has been charged in connection with the disappearance of an 11-year-old. After going missing for more than 27 hours, the schoolgirl was found at an address 3 miles from where she had last been seen on Monday night. And in perhaps the greatest blow to Nicola Sturgeon's sick gender recognition reform bill, Scotland's National Police Force, the main body for maintaining law and order, have defied the First Minister's trans madness. Today, Police Scotland confirmed that a 53-year-old man, not a woman, but a man, had been charged. This comes, of course, as Alex Salmond attacked his ex-sidekick for trashing their independence dream with her extreme trans ideology.
Think about that. 30 years of gradually building, till we get independence over 50% and then throw it away in some self-indulgent nonsense.
And SNP MP Stuart MacDonald has become the latest of Queen Nic's allies to speak against her, criticising Sturgeon's deranged independent strategy of using the next general election as a de facto referendum. So June Slater, Sturgeon very much seems to be running out of friends here. But how significant, June, that we actually have some common sense coming from the Scottish police who say, no, we're not buying in to this absolute madness. We arrested and we charged a man today. And I know we're not going to speak about the specific case because obviously he has now been charged. But it says something, doesn't it, June? It says Sturgeon is losing the argument in Scotland.
Well, I think it says that she's typical of a lot of politicians today, which they think they can just do some virtue signalling and keep the voter base. They can't. The people follow Nicola Sturgeon for independence. I've just had a WhatsApp message from someone who supports independence, and he thinks she's gone balmy, and he couldn't support her again. And she's tanking support. Looking at a separate case, the one of Isla Bryson, what really gets me with all this is a separate case, so we're not impeding anything there. He decided
but do you know what, June? Do you know what, June? Adam Graham. Can we not just get this straight? Adam Graham.
Okay.
Because Isla Bryson doesn't exist. Isla Bryson was a creation in the sick mind of a rapist who wanted to go to a women's jail, probably to commit more horrific rapes. So I'm sorry, I don't call this bloke Isla Bryson. And that is after hearing from his victims, it's after hearing from his wife, and it has been made completely clear to me that he tried to swindle the system by becoming Isla Bryson. So to me, and on this show, I believe we need to refer to this man, this rapist, as Adam Graham.
Right, I stand corrected, and I totally agree. I was being politically correct.
We don't like that, June. It's very unlike you, to be honest.
He transitioned whilst he was awaiting trial.
Yeah.
Now, as you say, this isn't going to be a one-off instance. This guy hasn't been nicking Mars bars. He's been raping women. And it's not been a one-off infatuation, 2016, 2019. He likes it. And he's going to a place where someone could be locked in a cell with him, screaming for her life. And until someone comes rattling some keys, she's going to be stuck there. What lunatic thinks that's acceptable? The thing is, I think it does a lot of damage to genuine trans people who have gone through an awful lot of emotional distress and physical transformation to get where they're going. They don't want this. I've got messages from them that they don't want people like this. These aren't anything to do with trans. These are criminals manipulating the system for their own criminality.
Indeed. And as a result of that, though, June, it feels like Sturgeon has now lost moral authority. And we saw with a leader like Theresa May that once that moral authority has gone, it's very difficult, isn't it, to get it back? So is she finished now, June?
If she believed in independence, she'd go. But she believes in Nicola Sturgeon and she'll cling on for grim death. She's like one of those goats you see on a mountainside. You're just waiting for her to slip, and there's always a rock fall. It's happening now and she can't see it. If there was any decency about it, being genuine about independence, I support being together. Obviously, I'm a Brexiteer. She'd go. She's damaging what she's supposed to be working for. But it's a good earner, isn't it, being a politician at the top of the tree? And there's too many like it.
Well, I think what Nicola Sturgeon is doing, June, I'm pretty clear about this. She wants to follow the Jacinda Ardern model. So she wants to portray herself as the woke queen of the world. I don't think she gives a damn about Scottish separatism, really. She knows it's not going to happen. But what she wants to do is she wants to use this trans madness to leapfrog from her job as First Minister to some globalist organisation, you know, to get a gig at the EU or the World Economic Forum or somewhere like that, the World Health Organisation.
I think you're right. I think she's a career politician. She's interested in Nicola Sturgeon, and for my liking, she spends far too much time in the hairdressers and standing at podiums to do any actual work. She wants to sort fly tipping out in her own constituency. It's the worst in the country. Have you seen the state of her constituency? She's not getting down to brass tacks and looking after her people. She's more concerned about a public persona on the world stage, and there's a lot of them at it.
Very good point. Very good point from our self-proclaimed chief gammon, June Slater. Thank you so much, June. We'll speak very soon. But coming up, as furious viewers vow to cancel their TV licences over the BBC's sickening new Shamima Begum series, documentary filmmaker Andrew Jury, who spent a year getting to know Shamima in a Syrian refugee camp, seeks to expose her as a fraud. He's got fascinating new detail. You're not going to want to miss this at 10:15. Also, as even their own chairman takes aim at the BBC licence fee, is it a sure sign that the Beeb should be defunded? My superstar panel thrashed that one out straight after the break. We're back in just 2 minutes' time.
He's the king of breakfast TV, and he's back.
Eamonn Holmes, back on the TV
Surprised
with me this morning.
Even remember my name.
I know, it's been 4 months. You have holy water by your bed?
Oh, yes.
Oh,
already to bless.
Oh, Eamonn. Oh.
Why do you not believe anything I say?
Eamonn Holmes back on GB News Breakfast at 6 a.m.
Here on GB News Live, we'll be keeping you in the picture, finding out what's happening across the country and finding out why it matters to you. We'll have the facts fast with our team of reporters and specialist correspondents. Wherever it's happening, we'll be there from 12 noon on TV, radio and online. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michael Portillo. Join me on GB News on a Sunday morning for topical discussion, debate, arts and culture, and sometimes even some ethical dilemmas.
I don't always agree with you, Michael.
Michael Portillo, Sundays on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Dewbs and Co.
You're an inspiration to us all.
Clip that bit up.
Well, you are.
That's my ringtone. My political ambitions are, those days are gone, I can tell you. She's only teasing. Go on. He's probably going to want to lay down now. I'll give him 2 minutes to have one. Let's respectfully disagree. That's what we like on Dewbs and Co. Come and join us. GB News, the People's Channel.
Michelle Dewberry, weekday evenings at 6 o'clock.
Monday to Thursday on GB News, it's Bev Turner Today from 10 a.m. We're going to be here for you, our GB News family, to keep you up to date, but also make you smile.
The guy went from puberty to adultery.
And I can't wait to bring a few of my own opinions.
I have no time for cultural totalitarianism.
We'll engage in passionate, but always polite debate, with your thoughts and opinions at the centre of it all. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's 10 p.m. I'm Dan Wootton. Tonight, as the BBC produced this revolting puff piece on the ISIS bride Shamima Begum.
I didn't feel British because I feel like I wasn't able to be British even though I wanted to be, if that makes sense. I didn't feel like I was accepted by society either because of racism and other things.
Why on earth is our state broadcaster endorsing the Disneyfication of a terrorist? The man who knows her best, the journalist and filmmaker Andrew Jury, says that Begum is a dishonest fraud who deserves to be exposed, and he's going to do that in an exclusive interview with me live at 10:15. And with our licence fee funding Begum's celebrity conversion, should we abolish the long outdated tax? Well, the biased Beeb's own chairman is coming around to the idea.
There are issues with the licence fee.
My advice to Richard Sharp is go one step further and defund it altogether. But does my superstar panel agree? That's our big debate next. And tonight I'm joined by Suzanne Evans, Adam Brooks and Ashley James. as Prince Harry reveals that he's planning a homecoming trip.
Each year, I so look forward to meeting with the award winners and spreading awareness about this incredible charity. I hope this...
So should the Duke and Duchess of Sussex finally take the hint that they're no longer wanted in the UK, you'll get both sides of the argument, as always, in the Media Buzz at 10:30. Plus, as the Church of England proposed to make God gender neutral and remove Our Father from the Lord's Prayer, Charlie Lawson tells me why Justin Welby's woke crusade needs to be stopped. Our Man of the People uncancelled at 10:40. And they suffered defeat at the weekend, but after bellowing the banned song Delilah loud and proud, will Welsh rugby fans be winners tonight? Find out when I crown today's Greatest Britain and Union Jackass at 10:50. We're going to have the first front pages hot off the press in mere moments, right after Holly Middlehurst.
Dan, thank you, and good evening to you. Our top story on GB News tonight. The Prime Minister has confirmed the UK is accelerating the delivery of military equipment to Ukraine, so it arrives within weeks rather than months. In his address to Parliament earlier, President Zelensky requested British fighter jets to bolster Ukraine's defences against Russia. Soon, he's expected to meet the French President Emmanuel Macron and the German Chancellor, both in Paris. Speaking at a military base earlier on today in Dorset, Rishi Sunak said nothing is off the table in terms of military assistance for Ukraine.
All over the United Kingdom, Ukrainian men and women are learning how to command and control NATO-standard weapons, whether that is in drone warfare, tank operations, or basic training. Their dedication, courage, and determination is a credit to you and your country. And Volodymyr, your visit here today underlines our two countries' close and enduring friendship. We will always be by your side, your staunch and unwavering friends.
Meanwhile, tonight, governments and organisations from around the world are offering support to Turkey and Syria after the two devastating earthquakes killed more than 11,000 people. The Foreign Office says 3 British people are still missing following the disaster. And Downing Street said this afternoon the UK will continue to assess the situation and stands ready to provide further long-term assistance as needed. In other news, international investigators say there are strong indications that the Russian President Vladimir Putin decided to supply the missile which downed a Malaysia Airlines flight in 2014. 298 people were killed in the disaster, which happened over Ukrainian territory. Investigators aren't suggesting Putin ordered the aircraft to be shot down, but they say evidence isn't strong enough to lead to a criminal conviction, so they've ended their probe without further prosecutions. Russia has denied any wrongdoing. Here, the partner of the missing mother of two, Nicola Bulley, has visited the riverbank in Lancashire where she vanished. Paul Ansell went to the field where her phone and dog were found near the River Wyre as police continued their 12th day of searching. Nicola went missing while taking her dog for a walk and after dropping her children at school. Meanwhile, the private underwater rescue team that's been helping police has now pulled out of the search. The former Labour MP Jared O'Mara has been found guilty of 6 counts of fraud committed while he was in office. The 41-year-old, who was a Member of Parliament between 2017 and 2019, was on trial for submitting fake invoices to Parliament worth around £24,000 to fund his cocaine habit. A jury cleared him of 2 other charges. Sentencing will take place tomorrow at Leeds Crown Court. And an inquest into the death of Archie Battersby has concluded he died accidentally, on a prank or an experiment that went wrong. The coroner ruled the 12-year-old boy, who was found unconscious in his bedroom, had not intended to harm himself. The boy had his life support treatment withdrawn in August last year after his parents failed to overturn a High Court ruling that doctors could lawfully do so. You're up to date on TV, online and DAB+ radio. This is GB News, part 2 now of Dan Wootton Tonight.
Tomorrow's news tonight now in our media buzz. The first front pages both leading on the same story. The Metro says Volodymyr Zelensky's visit to the UK with the president of war-torn Ukraine and meeting the King and addressing both houses in Westminster Hall. Zelensky thanked the people of Britain and praised former Prime Minister Boris Johnson, who got others to react when it seemed absolutely impossible. The Independent reports that Sunak could send British jets to Ukraine as Zelensky pleaded to Parliament to give us wings of freedom. My superstar panel back with me now. Political commentator Suzanne Evans in the House alongside businessman and activist Adam Brooks and the broadcaster Ashley James. Another day and yet another example of blatant bias by the BBC. Yesterday, the British Bashing Corporation was called out for publishing an article that offered zero balance on the Welsh Government's plan for new gender self-ID laws. While it was eventually stealthily edited to include critical views, the admission of bias goes to show the scale of the BBC's impartiality problem. So it's no wonder that even the corporation's own chairman, Richard Sharp, has admitted that he's lost faith in the undemocratic licence fee.
The licence fee is the least worst option. Do you still subscribe to that view? There are issues with the licence fee. It's regressive. In some ways, it's considered anachronistic because and there are other countries adopt other mechanisms. So it is imperfect.
Now, I'd actually go one step further and completely defund the whole operation, as you know. But what do you think, Adam Brooks?
I agree with you, Dan. I think the BBC has shown its bias. Brexit, with the Boris bashing, the trans issues. I don't think the BBC understands how to resonate with the whole of the UK and the population. I think they're run by woke people. I think they're out of touch. What gets me, Dan, is that I have to pay for my for my Sky TV. I watch channels like this through my Sky TV box. Yeah, I don't hardly ever watch BBC programming or content, but I have to pay for that in a licence fee. The system is outdated. It's wrong. It punishes the elderly, and as we see, the people that end up in prison are normally women because they're at home all day. Something's got to change. I think it's very outdated, and.
Yeah, actually, do you agree with me when I describe the BBC as the British Bashing Corporation?
I think what's tricky with the BBC from a news and political standpoint is the left think it's very right-wing and the right think it's very left-wing. So probably, I think impartiality is very hard.
Please don't tell me we think they're in the middle, because...
No, I don't. But I also think impartiality is a very difficult thing to achieve.
So are they on the left?
I'm not going to get into that, but...
Why not?
What I love about
why
the BBC...
not?
Dan,
why won't you get into that? Why don't you just admit the BBC is fundamentally a left-wing organisation? Because I think it would be much better if we were all honest.
I really don't believe it is.
OK, why do you think they order so many copies of The Guardian when no one out there, no one at home buys The Guardian? No one does. Well, you're one of very, very few people.
Even I read it occasionally. I think
I do
the BBC, for 44p a day, and by the way, I have other issues with the licence fee, but 44p a day, you get BBC One, 2, 3, CBC...
I don't want that.
Fair enough. But during lockdown, I think we really saw what an amazing service it is when they...
they were absolutely appalling during lockdown. They spread misinformation.
I'm not talking about the news and politics. I'm talking about the fact that they, out of nowhere, put on an education programme to help children who are missing
Because they've got shed loads of our money.
They have national and local radio. We've just all watched Happy Valley, like an amazing piece of drama. Think of all the employment for British people.
I don't want any of those things you've just spoken about.
My worry is, as Adam said, yes, the BBC does tend to take
a left-wing stance on it.
It targets pensioners, women and vulnerable people who aren't able to pay.
But the over 75s.
The alternative could be that the government could support the BBC financially, and given Richard
the government
Sharp,
supporting it, that means we support it. If you want to pay for the BBC, pay for it, because that's the era that we live in with streaming. And Suzanne Evans, the issue that I have with all of this is that I find it absolutely arcane that in this country, if you want to watch GB News on your terrestrial television via Freeview, for example, you have to pay your BBC licence fee. I never watch the BBC. And I
even
don't
Happy
feel...
Valley?
No, I didn't watch it.
I haven't seen that yet either.
Hi, what's wrong with you? Amazing TV.
So, you know, I've changed my view completely on this. I used to work for the BBC as a freelancer. I used to be a passionate supporter of the BBC licence fee. I do
but
agree.
they've changed.
They've changed enormously. I do agree with Ashley when she says it's value for money. You get all those TV channels, you get 5 national radio stations, you get the World Service,
But I don't want their view of the world.
Exactly, but this is my point. I think the BBC is technically very good value for money. So let's put it to the test. Why should you force people to pay for it? Surely, if it's that good, people can make the choice.
And they should be able to choose
I like
what they
the
want to pay
idea of a
for.
sort of Spotify subscription, so that those that want to pay can,
Absolutely.
and those who don't have the funds to pay or don't want to would have to watch adverts.
I completely agree with that. I completely agree with that. When I say defund the BBC, I'm not saying that the BBC should go. I think it should have to survive like the rest of the media does. And what that would do is it would democratise the organisation. It would mean they couldn't just ignore the 50% or the 52% of us who support Brexit or who voted for Brexit and just dismiss us. They couldn't just dismiss anyone over 50 as being old and they don't give a damn about us anymore. So for me, I genuinely feel like the BBC could survive, but it has to be prepared to take...
The other thing that I think is fundamentally wrong is the massive amount of intimidation you get if you haven't got a TV licence and you don't watch the telly. Some of you will know I'm converting a barn in Shropshire. It is literally a barn. When I registered the address with the local council, the first piece of mail I got was a threatening letter from me. And they keep coming.
Before I moved into my new house, and there was no TV in there for many, many weeks, you know, I already have the BBC sending debt collection agencies to me. But they are a despicable organisation. They terrify people. They warp the country with what they're doing with the news. And actually, I'm going to show you in just a moment after the break, actually, the Shamima Begum thing last night, which was completely disgusting. But when they're not trying to ask their own chairman, I've got to tell you something else about the BBC. They're leading the witch hunt against yet another senior Conservative politician. You won't be surprised to learn is Dominic Raab. The Deputy PM, as you will know, is facing bullying allegations. But this is actually sort of half hilarious, half truly shocking. Yesterday, the woke producers at Newsnight, I know you never watch, but you may have heard of it, thought they had the scoop of the century when they spoke to one of the complainants against Raab. The stakes were high, so naturally the format was a witness protection style interview reconstruction as this ex-civil servant reeled off this list of truly damning evidence against Raab. Watch this.
I saw him seething at other senior people, you know, hard staring at you and raising his voice. He would cut people short, telling them to stop talking. There were long silences. I don't recall swearing, and it was never physical. Lots of it was what I'd describe as microaggressions.
Long silences in the workplace? Suzanne Evans, he should be sacked immediately. Rishi Sunak, if you even think about getting rid of your most loyal lieutenant who stood by you through those dark days last summer when no one in the Conservative Party wanted you to become leader, then you are finished. Because this is what Raab is up against. Microaggressions.
There's over 20 allegations, so let's see how
Of which one is raising voices? I'm a boss.
really.
I've raised my voice.
Sometimes
when I've needed to raise my voice.
You won't even believe it, Adam, but sometimes sitting on the sofa, I raise my voice.
No.
I have met bullies in politics, when I've worked in politics, really nasty bullies. And I'm going to stick my neck on the line now. I don't think Dominic Raab is one of them. I think he's one of the most charming men I've ever met.
Yeah.
And I think he will be completely exonerated.
And John Bercow, obviously, while he was in post...
the left and remain in... They wanted him there when them allegations were there. Because he had a use.
Of course he had his uses, indeed.
Ashley James, Adam Brooks, Suzanne Evans do stand by, because coming up, should the Duke and Duchess of Sussex finally take the hint that they're just not wanted here anymore? You're going to hear both sides of that debate from my superstar panel when they return for the Media Buzz after 10:30. But next, as I just mentioned, this really shocking documentary on the BBC last night endorsed the Disneyfication of the terrorist Shamima Begum. Well, the man who knows her best, the journalist and filmmaker Andrew Jury, says she deserves to be exposed, and he's going to join me for an exclusive interview with new revelations live in the studio straight after the break.
He's the king of breakfast TV, and he's back.
Eamonn Holmes, back on the TV with me this morning.
Even remember my name.
I know, it's been 4 months. You have holy water by your bed?
Oh, yes. Already to bless.
Oh, Eamonn. Oh.
Why do you not believe anything I say?
Eamonn Holmes back on GB News Breakfast at 6 a.m.
Here on GB News Live, we'll be keeping you in the picture, finding out what's happening across the country and finding out why it matters to you. We'll have the facts fast with our team of reporters and specialist correspondents. Wherever it's happening, we'll be there from 12 noon on TV, radio and online. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michael Portillo. Join me on GB News on a Sunday morning for topical discussion, debate, arts and culture, and sometimes even ethical dilemmas.
I don't always agree with you, Michael.
Michael Portillo, Sundays on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Dewbs and Co.
You're an inspiration to us all.
Clip that bit up.
Well, you are.
That's my ringtone. My political ambitions those days are gone, I can tell you.
She's only teasing. Go on.
He's probably going to want to lay down now. I'll give him 2 minutes to have one. Let's respectfully disagree. That's what we like on Dewbs and Co. Come and join us. GB News, the People's Channel.
Michelle Dewberry, weekday evenings at 6 o'clock.
This year on GB News, we've got brand new members in the family.
Join us. Across the entire United Kingdom, we cover the issues that matter to you. GB News will always stay honest, balanced and fair. We want to hear whatever is on your mind.
And we don't talk down to you.
The establishment had their chance.
Now we're here to represent you.
Britain's watching.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m.
What's the scoop?
I'll be joined by 2 of the country's top comedians.
That's right.
As we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight.
We're going to get into trouble.
If it's a big story, we'll be covering it.
Spill some tea on him.
There we go.
But we'll also have some fun.
I wouldn't stick up a bank.
My father didn't love me. So anyway.
Headliners every night from 11 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christys, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics, and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, Andrew Pierce here. Join me every Friday lunchtime for a proper no-nonsense debrief of the week's events. With special guests in the studio and the GB News team on the ground, I'll be getting you up to date with news, some intelligent discussion and my own sharp take. The weekend starts here with me every Friday lunchtime on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Now, the warped MSM and left-wing campaign to rehabilitate the reputation of Shamima Begum reached a new low last night after the BBC broadcast a sickening 90-minute documentary that saw the ISIS bride spout even more lies. Branded the Shamima Begum story, the sickening puff piece, decorated with an ominous backtrack and tearful pieces to camera, gave the terrorist an undeserved platform that the countless victims of ISIS never got. And she was gifted free rein to paint herself on the British Batting Corporation as a vulnerable victim, while blaming everything from racism to the British media for her woes. Watch.
When they think of ISIS, they think of me because I've been put on the media so much. But what was there to obsess over? We went to ISIS, that was it. It was over. They just wanted to continue the story because it was a story. It was the big story. I just wanted to go along with what my friend wanted, you know, so I could be accepted. I didn't feel British because I feel like I wasn't able to be British even though I wanted to be, if that makes sense. I didn't feel like I was accepted by society either because of racism and other things. It's really hard wanting to integrate into society but your family holding you back. It's like when you're in love and you don't want to see the person's faults, so you just like push them to the back of your head, or you just completely deny that they are there, you know? Like I was in love with the idea of ISIS, so I just always made excuses for them.
I mean, I'm so shocked that sort of propaganda has been spewed out on our so-called public service broadcaster. Why are we giving any airtime to this stateless ghoul? Joining me now, the man who knows Shamima Begum best. In late 2021, investigative journalist Andrew Jury tracked her down to the Syrian camp where she remains and has maintained close contact with her since. But Andrew Jury, what is fascinating, given how well you know Shamima Begum, is you think this new celebrity version of Shamima Begum that the BBC is pushing is all one big fraud.
Well,
What can you tell us?
Well, it is. Firstly, I mean, with the video that you've just shown, just watched, she mentions the word racism. Now, I interviewed her for a long time and I approached about racism. I said, why did you hate the British? Was it, you know, somebody being racist to you with kids? She said, not really, just one little incident. So there's a big lie. So racism never got mentioned. And you've got to realise I've spoken to her for 18 months. So that shocked me. I mean, she seems got this character she seems to have formed.
So she's creating a false narrative to try and win a PR battle. And unfortunately, some people are getting sucked into it because there was that shocking Times magazine front cover at the weekend where she was portrayed as some sort of celebrity.
I felt sick about it because it looked like you had posh specs on the front. You opened it up, and husband and wife. It was like you saw David and
The
and Posh.
Confessions of Shamima Begum on one side, and then on the other side, they're promoting the latest Hollywood movie and giving you winter stew recipe.
I felt furious. I absolutely felt furious. I said, I think, come on here before, and I said she should come back. I don't think she should come back now.
So you've changed your mind?
I've changed my mind about everything now. I was shocked by what I'd saw. And not only that, I know how vain she is. The wall where she stood and had the photographs, know where that wall is. When I took photographs of her, she'd be looking through 6, 7 shots, make you delete shots. She's so vain. So now she's become the celebrity she wanted to be.
So you actually think this is what she wants?
She's a narcissist. I mean, and the whole documentary was full of, not the Shamima I know, because she was in sort of interview mode. When I spoke to her, she was, as we're talking now, I mean, I've spoken to you quite a bit now. So she relaxed, she became herself. I mean, she was saying, some of the things she was saying about her baby were her life to her. And then she was telling me she was over that part of her life. All of this was, I don't know what the BBC were doing. I really don't. It made me sick, physically sick watching it last night.
Me too. I completely agree, because the other problem that I had with it is that they claimed, in terms of justifying this, because they were investigating her story. But actually, all investigating her story really meant is they said to her, were you ever involved with, sewing suicide vests for the ISIS fighters, which I believe she was, based on the previous reporting. And she just said no, she denied it, and that was taken as fact. Just like, as you say, it was taken as fact that part of the reason she defected to ISIS in the first place was because of terrible, racist Britain that didn't accept her. And as you say, there's no evidence from Shamima's life in Bethnal Green that she was subjected to any form of racism.
I sat on a lump of concrete with her and I asked her about how she went there and why she went there and what she did. She never once mentioned ISIS videos and this park that she talked about. That's a load of rubbish. I asked her about, how were you groomed? And she said, well, it was the other girl, Shamina, which I knew about. So she wasn't watching videos. She never told me about that. And I knew her, and I have probably 200-300 text messages from her. Never once.
So is it... Can we go as far to say, because based on what you're saying, and remember, you know Shamima's story better than anyone because of the time that you've spent with her in Syria and investigating it, can we go as far to say that the BBC are now implicated in spreading false propaganda on her behalf?
Yeah, and I think it's also contempt of court, because she hasn't had... I think she finds out what happens to her trial in March. So, yeah, I think it's contempt, and I think it is propaganda. I think it's feeding in...
Why are they doing this? Why do they want to turn Shamima Begum into celebrity? What is the motivation there?
You ask me, it's sickening. I mean, what sickens me most about it, I mean, I spent a lot of time in Raqqa. I went into some of the camps and I saw the effects. I went into the torture place inside the stadium that you saw last night, which ironically, I'm surprised I didn't interview anybody from there. And it's sickening what happened. This is now as a poster girl for ISIS. They've made her ISIS poster girl.
They have. They have. And of course, when you talk about the victims, there are also the family members, by the way, the family members of the 2 British aid workers who were beheaded by ISIS before she joined. So David Haines and Alan Henning's family, and I think it's very important that their voice is heard here. So David's daughter, Bethany Haines, has described Shamima Begum as a ticking time bomb, does not want her back in the country. And Alan's brother, Paul Henning, has rightly labelled her evil scum. So who are we going to listen to here? Isn't it about time that we actually listen to the British victims of ISIS rather than Shamima Begum's mates trying to spread and, I think, create a false narrative?
100%. I think the whole documentary was a total load of left-wing garbage. I think even the basis, it started with a thought about the grooming, it pushed on the grooming, and actually all the negative stuff. I wish I'd had a chance. See, Josh, when I was in Syria...
Now, this is the guy who was behind this documentary, and he's also behind the podcast I'm Not a Monster.
I didn't know it was BBC, and I offered him all the messages, I offered him my words, he didn't want it. You tell me why. Because I knew her. I knew her a lot better than they did, and I know the truth.
He has a particular narrative he wants to push?
Yeah, of course there is. I mean, you saw the narrative. I mean... I can't... I mean, you can see how angry I am with it. I mean, trying to get words out are difficult.
And, of course, I heard him interviewed, by the way, very softball interview on the BBC Radio 4 earlier, just to provide both sides of the story. He insists that no payment was made to Shamima Begum. He was asked, does he now consider Shamima Begum a friend? And he didn't go as far as saying... that she was a friend, but he also didn't say that she wasn't a friend. So, look, I think there are some questions to be asked about this bloke, Josh, and how close he was to Shamima in terms of whether he could actually give journalistic rigour to her story. The other thing is, by the way, there's been no campaign by the BBC to rehabilitate Jihadi Jack, who was the white middle-class teenager from Oxford who also defected to ISIS. And I do feel like this is partly to do with the BBC's identity politics.
Well, if we go back to the money, he might not have given him money. Do you know how much it cost for security for 1 week?
How much?
In Syria? Around about $12,000 to $15,000.
And how many weeks?
He was there a month at one time. So when I was there, so there's probably $60,000.
Of our licence fee paid?
Of our money, And then there's the production costs. And equally, Shamima likes a gift. The way you have to get her to talk to you or whatever, she asks for gifts. So the first thing you do...
So what does she want? Clothes, food?
For me, for clothes. And then there was a book, which one of the reasons I changed my mind, she wanted Guantanamo Bay Diaries, and then she had a go at me. Having a go at me, I'm bringing her a gift. She said, you brought me clothes, but I'd rather the book. The reason is she studied...
What she asked for the book?
Yeah, she did, She wanted to be a... Yeah, because it's this kind of, I suppose, instruction book of being a victim.
Do you believe she's still a threat to British national security?
Not a threat herself, but her actions, and if we brought her back, it'd be a threat that others might follow the same pattern or path.
Indeed. Well, look, Andrew Jury, absolutely fascinating, exposing Shamima Begum there as a fraud, and also much of the work on that documentary last night as a fraud too. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Coming up in Uncancelled, as the Church of England proposes to make God gender neutral and removing Our Father from the Lord's Prayer, does Justin Welby's woke crusade need to be stopped in its tracks? A man of the people, Charlie Lawson, Uncancelled on that at 10:40. But next, in the media buzz, should the Duke and Duchess of Sussex finally get the hint? The UK doesn't really want them to come and visit this year. My superstar panel going to go hard on this one straight after the break.
I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m.
What's the scoop?
I'll be joined by 2 of the country's top comedians.
That's right.
As we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight.
We're going to get into trouble.
If it's a big story, we'll be covering it.
Spill some tea on him.
There we go.
But we'll also have some fun.
I wouldn't stick up a bank.
My father didn't love me. So anyway.
Headliners every night from 11 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday on GB News, it's Bev Turner Today from 10 a.m. We're going to be here for you, our GB News family, to keep you up to date, but also make you smile.
The guy went from puberty to adultery.
And I can't wait to bring a few of my own opinions.
I have no time for cultural totalitarianism.
We'll engage in passionate, but always polite debate, with your thoughts and opinions at the centre of it all. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Mark White. As GB News Home and Security Editor, I cover those key issues that are so important to you. Our authorities, our communities doing all they can to combat violent crime. With the public services under unbearable strain, why are we still failing to control our borders? Defence, the first priority of any government, has been continually hollowed out. Can we trust our politicians to protect the armed forces? Join me, Mark White, on GB News.
We are GB News, and we'd like to say thank you to each and every one of you for bringing us your conversations, for helping our great nation find its voice. We are here for you on radio, television, and online, across England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland.
It's not the BBC, you actually get your facts right.
We are proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michael Portillo. Join me on GB News on a Sunday morning for topical discussion, debate, arts and culture, and sometimes even some ethical dilemmas.
I don't always agree with you, Michael.
Michael Portillo, Sundays on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, Andrew Pierce here. Join me every Friday lunchtime for a proper no-nonsense debrief of the week's events. With special guests in the studio and the GB News team on the ground, I'll be getting you up to date with news, some intelligent discussion, and my own sharp take. The weekend starts here with me every Friday lunchtime on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Lawrence Fox, on GB News. Frank, fun, fearless, and sometimes serious. Much as I love a Friday night punch-up, what I really want is a battle of ideas. I want to look at things differently. I want to hear different voices and engage with your unique experiences. Every Friday at 7 p.m. on GB News.
Let's return to tomorrow's news tonight now in our Media Buzz. More front pages are in on the Eye following the visit of President Zelensky today. Rishi Sunak says that the UK is considering sending Typhoon warplanes to Ukraine. The Daily Telegraph headline reads, "Gives us wings for freedom," as Zelensky's visit to the Parliament might help pave way for those UK jets to be sent to the region. My superstar panel. Return now, political commentator Suzanne Evans, the businessman and activist Adam Brooks, and the broadcaster Ashley James. Now, after trashing his own family, his country and his reputation, I think the entire world was revelling in a rare period of peace and quiet from Prince Harry's long tales of victimhood. It looks like the fun might be over, folks, because the Duke of Delusion has resurfaced to drop a big hint that he'll be returning to the UK in 2023. Watch this.
Each year, I so look forward to meeting with the award winners and spreading awareness about this incredible charity. I hope this year you'll join me and get involved.
Just really think Harry isn't quite understanding where the British public is at the moment. He made it quite clear what he thought of the country in that pack of lies he had the audacity to call a memoir, and he's actively put Brits in danger, of course, with that self-indulgent Taliban kill count revelation. So, actually, James, why won't Harry and Meghan just not take the hint that given how much they seem to hate the UK, given how much they seem to hate the British royal family, why not just stay away for a little bit?
Dan, when they were silent, I swear you wrote an article saying, what's she planning? I feel like they can't win if they're silent, they can't win if they're here. But in this situation, I think you're being a bit mean, because he is talking about the Well Child Awards, which is a charity that helps terminally ill children and their families. And whether you like him or not, he does carry big weight. So to be a patron of a charity like that, or Help for Heroes, or, you know, he's done some amazing things. And He is a British passport holder, so, you know, he has every right to come to his country, and arguably he's done a lot more for the country than most of us has. You know, he served the country for 10 years. He created the Invictus Games. He does so much to help wounded veterans.
But he's also now... I mean,
And
no one's
look, for me, it's
denying,
not
by the way.
about whether
Let me
we
just
like or
respond,
don't
then
like
you can
him.
respond. Let me just respond, then you can respond, because I'm not denying that Prince Harry has done good work in the past, but unfortunately, now that he is actually trying to destroy the British monarchy, he must understand that there is going to be a lot of pushback to him in this country at the moment. In terms of your specific claim that I criticised Meghan for being silent, I didn't criticise it, but I am a journalist and I have broken lots of big stories about Harry and Meghan in the past. And the point I was making in my column is that I think Meghan's silence is very strategic at the moment. What she's wanting to do is try and appear like she is above Spare. That was all my horrible husband's dirty work. I never wanted it to happen. She's even briefed to one of, or people close to her have briefed to the Daily Telegraph, one of the newspapers she works for in this country, or who she works with in this country, that she gently disagrees with how the autobiography was done. And I think there's a strategy behind that, because she wants to be the main negotiation point between Justin Welby, the British royal family, and the Sussexes about what sort of concessions King Charles gives her before she comes over. And actually, I don't think she deserves any concessions.
I'm not going to disagree. I don't really care if they come over for the coronation or not. But in this particular case, with the Well Child Awards, I think it's amazing that he's continuing to help charities, especially charities that help sick children and their families for, you know, so many important things, like providing equipment and support and financial
I just
aid.
don't really think, Suzanne, anymore that's Harry and Meghan's main motivating factor. I'm
But
sorry, I
it's
don't. I think
always
it's the
been
main
what he's
motivating
about.
factor of Kate and William. I think it's the main motivating factor of Charles and Camilla. But I genuinely believe now Harry and Meghan are out for revenge, and they are out for ultimate destruction of the British royal family. Think of the revelations that they made about Prince William.
I mean, it's dreadful what they've done. You can't argue with that. I mean, this couple have put themselves and their own selfish desires and money, let's not forget that. They have made millions out of this. They have put that all above their family, above the monarchy, about everything that Britain has given them. I do agree with Ashley. He has done a huge amount for this country.
In the past.
Absolutely should be allowed back. Yes, he's a British passport holder. Absolutely, we can't stop him coming. But I'm afraid, Harry, when you come here, you're going to have to face the music. You're going to have to take the aggro, and I'm afraid there will be some, because people are very unhappy about what he's done. I mean, you asked, you know, can these guys take a hint that they're not wanted here? No, of course they can't. If God the Mother Almighty came down and shouted in their faces, they wouldn't listen.
They're so deluded that they think they're universally liked, and it's just the mad right-wing press that don't like them.
But their popularity in polling terms is going down and down.
Yes, look.
They must know that. They must.
But Adam, you say, I believe that Harry and Meghan are serial liars and hypocrites.
They are. Yeah, and I think even you mentioned earlier, was it 14 proven lies from the Oprah interview?
At least.
At least.
Yeah.
There's been several others. You know, I could reel off 5 or 6, but they are proven liars. And Harry's book, come on, it's OK for them to spill the beans on private, I say privates, his brother talked about his brother's penis.
Yeah, it's outrageous.
It's outrageous, but it's OK for them to do it, but not have it happen back.
Yeah, I mean, actually, how do you justify that? Because you're often very critical of the media, who you think are unfair to Harry and Meghan. But how do you justify the fact that in the book, Harry actually revealed, word for word, a conversation that he had with his father, our king, at his own dad's funeral when he was completely grief-stricken?
Yeah, look, I'm not like the big defender of Meghan and Harry.
You have been. So are you turning on them? Because it feels like you don't want to defend them tonight.
I'm not turning on them. But when I read any autobiography, I don't dissect every bit and think, oh, well, I would have said that or I wouldn't have said that.
Yeah, but you've always, but on social media, you've very much defended Harry and Meghan.
I do think they have been treated unfairly, and I also understand why they wanted to speak their truth, having felt like they couldn't.
But there's not really different versions of the truth, is there?
Well, there's always 3 versions of the truth. There's always one person's version, the other person's version, and then the actual truth.
When there's so many proven lies, how can you take really anything what that couple say as truth.
Look, I think they are not horrible people. I would much rather them be making their own millions free from the taxpayer rather than somebody like Prince Andrew who is spending millions to evade justice.
Where is this going to end? How long is this going to go on for? What's going to happen next? They're already talking about another book. They're talking about another movie. They're kind of like an endless soap opera, and I can see this going on for the rest of my life.
Wants.
No, but then let's not talk about them anymore.
No, but the thing is, Meghan will, if they come over for the coronation, Meghan will make this the Meghan show.
Of course she will. And I tell you what, if she does go to that coronation, I'd be having her searched at the door to make
Look,
sure
if I'm honest, I want them to come over because every time they come over, Dan, they mug themselves off.
Well, they do. And I have to say, in all of my reporting on Harry and Meghan, there have been serious fears from within the royal family. And this is very true. I'm very happy to say it. That Meghan was suspected, and they have no proof that she did it, but that she was suspected at least of potentially having recording devices on her.
Well, she clearly did.
And potentially recording private phone conversations. Now, again, I will stress, they have no proof that this is what Meghan has done, but when you look at the books and you look at the interviews, conversations are accounted word for word.
It wouldn't surprise me, and I don't think it would surprise much of the audience, you know?
No. And how shocking is that? How shocking is that? If your family even suspect you of covertly recording them, you know there are serious problems in how you have acted. Now, last night, Sleepy Joe Biden was true to his name as he delivered a ponderous snooze fest of a State of the Union address for well over an hour. Biden droned on. He painted his administration as being a categorical success, but I mean, maybe you should tell that to the 62% of Americans in a recent poll who think he's accomplished not very much or little or nothing. But hope was restored to US politics with the Republican response as the new governor of Arkansas, Sarah Huckabee Sanders, remember, she's the daughter of Mike Huckabee. She used to be the spokesperson for President Trump. I have to say, this is probably her best moment so far in public life. She took down the woke mob who have infected the Democrats and the left in this country too in the most spectacular of fashion.
The Biden administration seems more interested in woke fantasies than the hard reality Americans face every day. Most Americans simply want to live their lives in freedom and peace. But we are under attack in a left-wing culture war we didn't start and never wanted to fight. Every day we are told we must partake in their rituals, salute their flags, and worship their false idols. All while big government colludes with big tech to strip away the most American thing there is, your freedom of speech.
Brilliant.
Hallelujah, Sarah Huckabee Sanders. If only this country had more politicians with balls like her. Absolutely love that. Suzanne Evans, Adam Brooks, Ashley James. Do stand by because coming up. They might have suffered a defeat at the weekend, but after bellowing the banned song Delilah loud and proud, will Welsh rugby fans be winners tonight as we reveal today's Greatest Britain and Union Jackers? Find out at 10:50. The next in Uncancelled, as Justin Welby and the Church of England propose making God gender neutral, Charlie Lawson says the pews will simply empty if they continue to spread their woke claptrap. Our man of the people is live with me in just 2 minutes' time, so don't go anywhere.
I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m.
What's the scoop?
I'll be joined by two of the country's top comedians.
That's right.
As we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight.
We're going to get into trouble.
If it's a big story, we'll be covering it.
Spill some tea on him.
There we go.
But we'll also have some fun.
I wouldn't stick up a bank.
My father didn't love me.
So anyway.
Headliners every night from 11 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christys, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, Andrew Pierce here. Join me every Friday lunchtime for a proper no-nonsense debrief of the week's events. With special guests in the studio and the GB News team on the ground, I'll be getting you up to date with news, some intelligent discussion and my own sharp take. The weekend starts here with me every Friday lunchtime on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
And right across the United Kingdom.
You can find us on Sky Channel 512,
Virgin Media Channel 604,
Freesat Channel 216,
Freeview Channel 236,
and YouView Channel 236.
You can also take us with you on DAB Plus Radio,
with the GB News app and at the website gbnews.uk.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's time now for Uncancelled. And this is where Britain's top commentators speak out on controversial issues without the fear of the cancel culture sweeping the rest of the media. And the Church of England has sent shockwaves through their worshippers by suggesting that God should now be gender neutral. Bishops have announced they will be launching a major new project on gendered language this spring, which could signal an end to referring to God as he or even our Father in favour of non-gendered terms. Well, to give his opinion on this latest attack on common sense, our man of the people, the former Coronation Street star and social commentator Charlie Lawson. Charlie, goodness gracious me. So we're now going to change the Lord's Prayer to appeal to this woke minority? What's going on?
Well, what's going on is I'm going to try very, very hard in case the bishops of this fine country of ours are listening in. I sincerely hope they've been on the phone to Mr. Welby and said, wise up for God's sake, get on your knees and do your job, for goodness sake, because this is just crazy. There is absolutely nothing good about this at all. And I'm not sure whether I would be a Christian or not. I mean, I go to church for funerals, weddings, and I go on Remembrance Day. And very occasionally I will pop in if I have something to think about or whatever, for a bit of haven of peace and quiet. But I'll tell you one thing, if they start doing this and I was a borderline churchgoer, I would not be going to a church again if you couldn't say the Lord's Prayer. You know, I mean, there's nothing good about this at all. It's not constructive. It's not helpful. And if he thinks he's trying to get down there with the kids, I'm afraid you're the Archbishop. You ain't going to get down with the kids, mate. You know what I mean? Just get on with your job. We're struggling to fill our churches, our country churches or whatever, and this ain't going to help at all. I mean, you know, nobody's changing the Quran, and our evangelical churches, I believe, are doing very well. No one would dare. No, but you know what I mean? But I mean, I believe that the ordinary middle-of-the-road Church of England churches, where I live, I mean, et cetera, they have to work hard to get the congregation, and this is just making it another uphill battle, you know? I mean, what are they going to do? I mean, you know... Jesus, Mary and Joseph and the wee donkey? What's it going to be? Jesus, Mary and Joseph and the wee camel, as somebody said. I mean, you know, I despair, but I'm trying. Look, I'll be brutally frank. This is bollocks, but that's about as rude as I'm going to get.
Good, very good. No, I agree. Now look, elsewhere, Charlie, closer to your industry, this senseless march towards wokery sweeping the arts really shows no signs of abating. So Shakespeare's Globe Theatre has shown with its latest inclusivity initiative some madness. So after 400 years, delighting audiences around the world, A Midsummer Night's Dream will now be sullied with a trigger warning against misogyny and racism, with the ticketing team today explaining it was in response to previous complaints from audience members. I mean, what is going on in your world, Charlie?
Well, I'll tell you what is going on very quietly, and that is if you bother your rear end to talk to actors quietly in the pub when there's no danger of anybody knowing who they are, quite frankly, most of them say, I really don't understand this at all. Now, the Globe will attract a certain amount of regular customers, and some of them may be offended, but, you know, this is another question of where are we going to stop. I was just glancing at my complete works of Shakespeare today, as you do, and you know, I mean, Romeo was 16 and Juliet was 13. Now that's, you know, we know what that is. So what are we going to do? We're going to change that. I mean, is King Lear ageist? And I mean, what sort of warnings are they going to put on Othello, for God's sake? But they're following, you know, I wonder what Sam Wanamaker would make of this, who founded the Globe Theatre and did the restoration and built the damn thing. I wonder what Sam would make of it. But also, I don't know where this is going to stop, but it's all a bit bloody silly, really. But I mean, I'd like to work again, Dan, so I'm not going to go any further than that.
No, very good. Very good. Well, look, let's move on, because Britain's balmy councils have baffled the nations once again. This is after a 68-year-old nurse in Kent was fined £100, Charlie, guess what, for feeding the ducks. So this is the dementia nurse, Susan Watson, who was slapped with the punishment in Tunbridge by the Borough Council after she was witnessed dropping a crust of bread into the River Medway. I mean, number one, I can't imagine the ducks of Tunbridge will be too chuffed with this decision. But, Charlie, come on. Are we starting to live in some sort of surveillance state where you can no longer feed the ducks? How was this against any rules?
Well, 2 points on this, Dan. Firstly, I wish I'd been in the park because I would have booted this fellow or woman up the arse and thrown them into the bloody pond themselves. And now there are certain times. Let me tell you, if you're in County Fermanagh in Northern Ireland and you're on Lough Erne and you tie up at the jetties, it really is a pain in the ass when people feed the geese, the Canadian geese and the ducks there, because not to put too fine a point on it, they shite everywhere.
OK.
but
I get
it. If you're throwing the bread into the, you know, £100 fine.
£100.
Have they not got?
Just say stop it. Exactly. Just say stop it. I mean, it's just insanity. Charlie Lawson.
Yeah.
So great to speak. We'll speak next week, Charlie. Thank you so much. But it is time now to reveal tonight's greatest Britain and Union jackass. And my superstar panel are back. Suzanne Evans, let's kick off with you. Who is your nomination for tonight's greatest Britain?
It's going to be Harrow, Bexley, Bromley and Hillingdon councils because they're refusing to put up cameras to let London Mayor Sadiq Khan expand his ultra-low emission zone. Sham consultation got it through. Penalises poor people.
I like that because we've gone from one very bad council to one very good council. That's appropriate. Adam Brooks, your nominee?
Mine is all the Welsh rugby fans that sang Delilah loud and proud all around Cardiff and in the ground. And it was a two-finger salute to the woke police that wanted it stopped. So, fair play.
Good on them. I loved it. I loved it because it is officially banned in the stadium, right? What can you do? What can you do if you've got tens of thousands of fans and good voice singing Delilah? There's nothing you can do. Ashley James, your nominee.
Mine is an honorary one, although technically there are some British workers out there, but that is just to mention the rescue workers. I think, you know, we've all been really moved by some of the imagery coming out of Turkey and Syria and those workers from Turkey and Syria, but also 20 other nations, including Britain. And I just think that, you know, when bad things happen, it's just a nice reminder that there are good humans out there.
Indeed, what a great choice. And, of course, that's got to be tonight's greatest Britain. It's absolutely terrible what is going on in Turkey and Syria and all of the workers have gone over and risked their own lives. And Ashley is right. They do actually include British teams who have flown out today. Union Jackass time now. Suzanne Evans, your nominee, please.
So today we've heard that a COVID loan fraud is probably going to cost, well, it's already cost the taxpayer $4.4 billion, and that bill could go up to $17 billion. So it's those lowest of the low who took out fraudulent COVID loans of up to 50 grand, knowing they were then going to make their businesses bankrupt and never pay it back. Appalling.
Absolutely disgraceful. Absolutely disgraceful. Shame on them. And the system was always so open to fraud, wasn't it? Adam Brooks, your nominee.
My nominee is the terrorist that is Shamima Begum.
Why?
Because she's a terrorist and she knew what she was doing and she shouldn't come back.
I agree. Ashley James, your nominee?
Mine is actually Nick Ferrari.
Oh, why?
This week for saying that those who currently can't afford items for their children shouldn't have had children in the first place. I think he's just showing a total lack of empathy and understanding of how world events, this government, and also personal events like death or job loss can impact people and their incomes. I think it's just...
Suzanne, Adam, do either of you think Nick Ferrari had a point?
Yeah, I think he had a point. But I do agree, of course, people's circumstances change. But I think if you...
And people facing real time pay cuts and mortgage increases.
You need to think carefully before you have children. They are expensive.
So you have to think 10 years ago that there might be government mismanagement and mortgage repayments and world events. I think we should be helping the most vulnerable people in society, not shaming them.
We have a responsibility to children, not just a right to have them.
Adam?
It's the first I've seen of the story, so I'm going to leave it on that.
OK. All right. Well, look, I'm clearly going to go with Shamima Begum. I'm completely riled by the liberal bleeding heart media in this country trying to rehabilitate this woman who Adam Brooks quite rightly describes as a terrorist. The BBC propaganda puff piece last night was an absolute disgrace. It shames the BBC. It shows that the BBC is Britain hating. The podcast series is a disgrace. It's called I Am Not a Monster. Let me tell you, Shamima Begum is a monster and she should not be setting foot back in this country. Thank you so much to tonight's superstar panel. Suzanne Evans, Adam Brooks and Ashley James. Thank you for your company today. I am back tomorrow night from 9 p.m. Next up, though, it's Headliners. Good night.
This year on GB News, we've got brand new members in the family.
Join us. Across the entire United Kingdom, we cover the issues that matter to you. GB News will always stay honest, balanced and fair. We want to hear whatever is on your mind.
And we don't talk down to you.
The establishment had their chance.
Now we're here to represent you.
Britain's watching.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel.